Uh,
It's on? Okay, thanks.
I think we've got everybody we're going to have, so if you want to call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Here. Senator Douglas.
Here.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Here.
Senator Meredith.
Here.
Chairman Hart.
Here. Now that we've got a quorum, we're going to get started. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes. Okay, make sure. It's consideration of the minutes of the February 14th meeting of the committee.
Motion approved.
I got a motion by Senator Meredith, seconded by Senator Douglas. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Motion carries. Total number of items on the agenda equal 231 in the amount of $61,240,832,019. Oh, correction. I read that wrong. 60. Yeah, okay. There's $61,240,832.19. All vendors are registered with the Secretary of State's office. Next order of business is consideration of the agenda, including the corrections list, personal service contract list, PSC amendment list, memorandum of agreement list, memorandum of agreement amendment list, Kentucky Entertainment Incentive Program agreement list, and the corrections list except for those items selected for further review. Do we have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection?
So moved.
Motion by Senator Meredith, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Motion passed. First item on the agenda, we're going to go a little bit out of the order. If the representatives from the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife would come on up. And thank you, ladies, for waiting so patiently. And when you're ready, introduce yourself for the record. And I believe Senator Meredith has some questions.
Jenny Gilbert, Legislative Liaison for the Department.
Lisa Cox, Director of Administrative Services.
Melissa Trent, Assistant Director for Administrative Services.
Thank you all for being here. Certainly appreciate your patience and indulgence. And unfortunately, it is this time of year for the legislature. The two contracts I pulled, I don't really have a problem with the substance of it other than I keep seeing this repeat note of this contract replaces such and such. And we'd just like some clarification of what's going on here as to why we're seeing these replacement contracts and this whole dynamic around purchasing. If you could kind of give me some historical perspective on that.
Senate Bill 217 passed last session, regular session, and it changed the procurement for the fish and wildlife, but we still have to follow KRS 45A. Any contracts that were in process, even if they'd already been bid and just waiting final approval, were rejected back to draft. And there were certain contracts, though, associated with DECA, the Division of Engineering and Administration within Finance Cabinet. KRS 45A 300 allows us to utilize statewide agreements, but the Finance Cabinet has taken several measures, even as late as a week and a half ago, in order to keep us from using those. We did not feel like that we could use the DECA agreements because even though they're for statewide functions, they were just with one agency. So the Finance Cabinet assigned some of those agreements to us, and then they also terminated some. The ones that they terminated, we contacted those vendors and basically assumed those in order to get a new signed agreement. So these are what are from finance's agreements moving forward, both of the contracts that were pulled. We are not able to bid out new agreements, though, for engineering, because it takes, according to 45A, is it 825?
Yes.
It requires us to have a committee, and we do not have enough engineering staff. So the department in the past has taken part of that committee for their contracts before this past year, and we have reached out to them twice. So you're seeing contracts that are left over. We do not have any new engineering contracts as of yet. We have been utilizing other statewide agreements, so there are for multiple agencies, but there's no way for us to redo these. The commissioner has reached out to finance to ask for additional staff to serve on those committees so that we can comply with 45A. And finance cabinet, I think, rejected the offer the first time. Our last one was, it was probably about a month or so ago. We actually did the bid on February 20th. And we did the bid. It was for a children's camp for the dining hall, and finance just never responded, and so we had to let the bid lapse. So we have issues still. You had asked before, I think, when I had been here maybe in December, and we still have this definite issue with engineering contracts, with other regular procurement that doesn't have anything to do with construction. They've taken several measures. Like I said, the last one was within the last week and a half. Finance has made it where we can't even read those agreements anymore. We had audit.
Yes, we
questions.
currently have a state audit going on with the auditor's office, and I was asked for some documentation, and we cannot view that documentation now, so I had to go a different route with somebody who had that access to give the auditors the information. But specifically with these two contracts, the reason why you're seeing these is because they were initiated with finance first, and then due to 217, they kind of handed everything over and assigned certain stuff to us or terminated contracts. So in order for us to continue to pay vendors, we had to pick the contract up and basically duplicate services and create that document in the EMAR system, which is the accounting system, to where we had the ability to use it because we could not use their documents any longer.
So every other agency in state government has access to state contracts except for
Yes.
you folks.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, just recently we have a couple of the documents now, the master agreements that are statewide master agreements that even local, they say all state. This was one specifically for them that we can no longer use, that we were using. It says all state, and they've now put in parentheses excludes fish and wildlife.
And again, this isn't just state agencies. This is your local police department, according to KRS 45A 300, are allowed to utilize these agreements. But the finance cabinet has put roadblock after roadblock so that we cannot.
Had they give you an explanation as to why you can't have access to them?
No, I did. I guess a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I've sent 2 emails asking why my access had been removed, and I've not gotten an answer
So you're having to duplicate everything the finance cabinet used to do.
on any of the master
Yeah.
agreements or contracts that they had procured for us, and now we have to, we've had to do those in order for us to pay vendors.
But again, every other state agency, quasi-state agencies has access to you, but you folks do not.
Correct.
Do you know who they got that directive from, that y'all can't participate in these contracts?
Well, originally, the agency received memos from the finance cabinet secretary. And then we also received a memo from the transportation cabinet. In the past, Fish and Wildlife had utilized the gravel contracts because we might have a dock washout, and we
Sure.
don't, necessarily need a gravel contract everywhere. And so we would utilize transportation's gravel contract. So the transportation cabinet secretary also sent a memo to the commissioner and said that we could no longer utilize those agreements.
Has the commissioner filed a formal complaint with finance?
No.
We've submitted several letters. The commissioner has just
In
requested
reply.
in reply to different situations that she has mentioned, with little to no response.
And how's this duplication of efforts in the best interest of the people of the Commonwealth? Rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer. But have you sought legal counsel on this?
I'm not aware of it. So,
No.
Well, perhaps we should request legal counsel on this gentleman, that ask the Attorney General to take a look at this. I think these folks are being punished, they're being discriminated against, and being treated unfairly, and the edge just can go on and on. I'm sorry this is small and petty by this administration to treat you folks this way. You're still serving the Commonwealth and the people that we represent, and intentional barriers are being placed in front of you to keep you from doing your job and serving effectively.
may I speak?
Yes.
I'm really concerned because Philo is one of the branches within our department. And so these contracts, like the two that we have here, are for the fees in lieu of stream mitigation. So you've got multiple contracts out there for hundreds of millions of dollars that we're not going to be able to move forward on once these contracts are completed. And if there's an emergency, we really have no way to do a contract, and because we can't form the committees that we need for engineering contracts. So this is really, I mean, it's a very big issue that's going to affect all of the citizens.
Certainly it is, and I'm sorry you're having to go through it. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we request Attorney General's office to intervene in this situation, make a complete review of it, and try to rectify it in the best interest of these folks, but also the citizens of the Commonwealth.
Okay. All right. I got a motion a second, so we'll go ahead and vote on it. But just for the record's sake, or for people's understanding, because I got a couple new people, we don't necessarily have to have a motion on this. We could just send a letter out. But since we do have a motion in a second, let's just go ahead and have a vote, and that way we can all be on record for it. Do you have a question? Or?
No.
Okay.
Who had a second?
Oh, yeah. Motion was made by Senator Meredith and seconded by Senator Douglas. And Clerk, you want to call the roll?
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. A motion passed, and we will get that out as soon as we can and see if we can provide you a little bit of support there.
I would like to say we are supported by the licensed dollars from sportsmen and women across the state. And I think that you can hear from our staff, they are doing a phenomenal job. And they have managed the changes that 217 brought to our department very well. And we just want to let the sportsmen and women know that the department is doing their job to manage that effectively and efficiently as best we can. But there are challenges that we have had nothing to do with. And so any lapse in a contract or any question that you all may have that is legitimate is not due to inefficiency of our staff. And I think it's fair to represent them and support them and encourage them in what they're doing, and just to say they're doing a great job. And under the circumstances, they have really persevered very well to continue to manage those sportsmen and women's dollars and to manage it effectively.
And that is duly noted by this committee.
Thank you.
But with that said, do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed?
So moved.
Motion by Senator Meredith, second by Representative Pollock. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Motion passed. With that, thank you, ladies, and we do apologize for the extended wait, but we appreciate you all staying here and testifying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on the pull list is with the University of Louisville. It is number 44 on the routine PSC green list. If the representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record and please come forward.
I believe Shannon Rickett is there. Chairman Hart, my name is Angela Curry. I'm General Counsel for the University of Louisville.
Okay, thank you. And Shannon, you can come on up to the table if you like.
And I'm Sally Malzberger, Chief Procurement Officer at the University of Louisville.
All right, Shannon, if you'll just identify yourself for the record.
Shannon Rickett, Government Relations for the University of Louisville.
All right, great. Well, this time I'm going to turn the floor over to you ladies.
Okay. Well, this is a contract for our healthcare regulatory work, and we had previously put this out to bid, and we had a firm that had connections outside of the state that to do this work. But we found that when we can partner with the firm in Kentucky that does most of our work, most of which is at the contract rate, although at this particular instance, we're seeking a higher rate because of the highly specialized nature, we had an opportunity to have significant savings. You'll see that the rate here is $265 to $565 an hour. The successful bidder ranges from $685 to $975. So we wanted to have an opportunity to, one, work with a firm that has been good over the years in working within our constraints, and also save the Commonwealth and save the university money in working on this highly specialized nature of work related to our academic medical center.
Okay. Senator Meredith, did you have...
Yeah, I always do. This is presented as a sole source contract, and I appreciate that folks had this position, but I think just a matter of policy that these things should be routinely, RFP should be prepared just as a fail-safe. I appreciate your position that the partner here has given you supposedly a discounted rate, but quite candidly, not trying to be crass about it, but how you know it's a discounted rate? There's really not a whole lot of transparency to these things when we just say, well, they say they're going to discount their services to it. As compared to what?
Well, one thing I can speak to is the bids that we had for all the firms when we did the RFP for this work. There were 4 firms. The winning bid was between $685 and $975 for healthcare regulatory work. Another firm had a range from $1,060 to $1,395. Another firm had $575 as their number, but did not have experience with the academic medical center. And then the fourth firm had rates between $1,070 an hour and $1,270. So we actually have sort of looked at across the nation, really, the folks that do this work, and tried very hard to get the lowest rate that we can with a group that understands the nature of the work that we do here in Kentucky.
How long ago was that RFP?
I think, and Sally, you'll have to help me. I believe it was summer.
Yes.
Yes.
It was.
Summer of 22.
Well, then this really isn't a sole source contract. It's best bid contract.
Well, the firm that we're using did not participate in this firm because we needed this bid because in some cases this firm has a conflict, but on this issue there is no conflict and they have a much lower rate. So we wanted to have an opportunity to spend less money for a firm that's more familiar with the work that we do here, and that's the reason for the.
Well, you lost me. You kind of had me, but then you lost me. You did an RFP, which I would expect to be done, but you say this firm did not participate in the RFP.
Correct, because this firm, there were some conflicts that we thought would be in place, which is one of the reasons why we needed to have a firm outside of this one to potentially do the work. But wherever we can, we're seeking to save money. So when we had an issue that's come up, and we have, that does not fall within the conflict of interest that this firm had, it, one, gives us the opportunity to work with a trusted partner, and two, gives us an opportunity to save money on the rates.
So when you have the routine work, it's given to the firm who had the best proposal under the RFP?
Generally, yes. And unless we can, like I said, if we're able to save money, we certainly would like to be able to do that. But generally, yes, if the work falls within the conflict that led for the need to do the RFP, we're going to use the firm that's at the higher rate, but we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible, obviously, because their rates are at least 30 to 40% higher than the firm that we're seeking approval for today.
Then why can't you use this firm exclusively?
We could. I mean, actually, yes, we could. The only place where we could not use them is if it fell within the conflict of interest, which would be a limited sort of area of work. So Sally, I'm not sure what we would do to have them to sort of push them into this process, because certainly if they had been able to participate, they would have been the winning bid.
Well, we've discussed wanting to, during possibly this summer, issue some RFPs for these highly specialized work so that we have them available to us and know if they have a conflict, we won't look at them, but we're going to try to get this accomplished. However, I know we did have the case where we were asked to retract it and then reinstitute it when we have the need. So we're kind of on the fence which way is the best way to go, but we are going to this summer test the waters to find out and get the local firms for these highly specialized, because we feel like the firms that are charging the state rate, they do have the familiarity with the university. So that's why they're typically coming in at lower than some of the out-of-state members, because they've got the familiarity. So we're going to try to do that this summer, and then we'll have the RFP process and then issue the PSC only once we have the work coming to us, learning from what we did earlier this year when we retracted it because we didn't have the work at that time.
Well, I'm all for saving money and using in-state firms for this, but it appears to me to be backwards, that this firm couldn't participate in the RFP because of potential conflict of interest, but they're doing the work until a conflict of interest arises. Could they have not participated in the RFP process and then identify those conflicts of interest and that work be awarded to another firm?
Well, they didn't respond because of the conflict of interest on the solicitation from the out-of-state vendors.
Then how
So
can
now-
they participate at all if they've already noted a conflict of interest?
It doesn't appear in this work that we're doing right now.
So the RFP wasn't specific to this work, as to other work?
It was specific to healthcare regulatory work, but the specific need at that time related to an area where this firm could have had a conflict. Now that we're moving beyond that to other issues, they can take on this work without there being any worry about a conflict of interest.
Well, I guess I'll have to take your word for that one and not question anybody's integrity here, but I hope you know where I'm coming from, that I think first I'm bothered by sole source contracts. And again, I don't think this falls in this particular category, but there's got to be some method in place to validate these rates, that they are fair, they are competitive. And I don't know how you do that outside the RFP process.
Agreed. And we're committed. I'm committed, and Sally is as well, that we are going to sort of bring this all back together and do another RFP. And I think it will show that this firm will emerge as the best candidate, given their contact, their Louisville and Kentucky contacts with us, and the lower rate that they're giving us on this specialized work. And so I don't know if there's a way we can come back and certify that we've done that, but we certainly will do that.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Oh, I got thousands of questions, but I'm not going to go there other than to say that I've got a lot of weaknesses, but not having a good memory is not one of them. I'm going to take you at your word for this, but when these contracts roll around again, I would expect to see some process in place and some justification of these rates more than what we've seen so far. And I'm sorry, I'm not picking on you folks. It's just there's got to be complete and total transparency. And I think particularly in light of the University of Louisville's past problems, financially speaking, that you folks would want that too. So I'm just looking for total and complete disclosure and transparency. And I think this one's lacking. But again, I'm going to give you folks the benefit of the doubt. And Mr. Chair, if there are no other questions, comments, I'll make a motion to approve this contract.
I have a motion to approve the contract by Senator Meredith, second by. Okay, go right ahead, Senator Boswell. Yeah, go right ahead.
I agree with Senator Meredith on his comments, but I just have one other just short thing I want to talk about. It's related to, each week or month when we come in here, we talk about funding for most of the universities. And I'm concerned that some of the things that are coming about some of the things that's coming from our universities, and I have posed this question, and I don't want to but I just want to say this. The University of Louisville's website says that no mandatory critical race training sessions are yet required of students, but then it goes on to say some other things. So all I want to say tonight is that, as we watch these contracts, we're very concerned about the things that are being taught to our students if they are mandatory.
Okay, thank you, Senator Boswell. I have a motion by Senator Meredith, a second by Senator Douglas. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, clerk, could you call the roll?
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Motion passed, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Once again, thank you guys for your patience on this tonight. Our final item on the pulled list is with the Department of Juvenile Justice and is number 24 on the PSC Amendment Ivory list. The representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record and come forward. Are you on Zoom?
Good evening. Yes, good evening. My name is William Codell, and I'm an attorney for the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Okay. And are you by yourself this evening?
No, sir. I'm James Van Buren. I'm the medical director for Department of Juvenile Justice.
Okay, great. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to, I think Senator Meredith has some questions.
I do. We're looking at a contract that was originally, it looks like it's $800,000. We've increased by $2.7 million. And the explanation given here is that additional funds as the Department of Juvenile Justice underestimated its current need when creating the initial contract. So, and then it's followed by the underestimation was the result of this contractor being better than the previous and other contractors of finding nurses and actively filling necessary positions. That kind of seems counterintuitive to me, that if they're doing a better job, are we saying we just didn't have the coverage during that period?
Yeah, yes, sir. The previous, to give some estimation, the previous agency probably filled about 50% of our nursing slots, and that was where they capped out. When we submitted a new RFP, we didn't want to be stuck like that, so we actually put out 2 different agencies, and we were awarded 2 different agencies, and so we doubled the funds. So it was $800,000, but it was $800,000 for each agency. So we now have 2 agencies, 2 RFPs that allow us to use nursing services. And this particular company has been finding nurses and the other agency has not. So we are very lopsided in this agency, and they are unfortunately the ones who cost a little bit more, which is why it's a little bit lopsided on the funds. So we had to redo that for this agency.
Well, the other statement under this description says that you're hopeful to be able to implement more weekend coverage in the future, which would add an additional $500,000 to $800,000 per year in payments. So this is going to be above the $3.5 million that we have here?
No, sir. I tried to account that in the 3.5 total.
Other question I have is, this is a sizable contract. It's relatively speaking. I mean, I guess in state government it's not all that big, but it's big to me. And this type of nursing, to fill these slots this way, is the most expensive means of filling these slots. Do we not have an active program in place to try to recruit our own full-time staff so we don't have to incur this, what appears to be a huge incremental cost?
Yes, sir. I have been trying that route. I have been trying to, looking at the numbers, if we could recruit our own DJJ nursing, we would save a lot of money. By doing that, we just honestly, we're losing more DJJ nurses because of pay, and they're going to agencies like this, whether for us or for someone else, because it's very hard to compete in the market, and we're having a tough time filling our positions, to be honest.
Well, if we're paying these kind of dollars, how much could we potentially save if we can hire our own staff?
It's a very crude estimation, but honestly, if we increased our nursing salaries by even 50%, we would come in under what it would cost for an agency nurse full time. And that's if we bumped them by 50%. I think the starting salary for a nurse coming into DJJ is $32,000 to $42,000. And when you throw in benefits, the number that I was able to pull, the total cost for a nurse with a salary of $32,000 would be somewhere around $72,000 a year for one nurse DJJ, and that's including benefits and health insurance and all that. With an agency nurse, with the more expensive agency, a full-time nurse would cost somewhere around $175,000.
And why aren't we doing that?
That I'm not sure. I have been trying to do this. I took this job 2.5 years ago, and I've been told I'm kind of on the list for this raise for the nurses.
Who tells you that?
I have talked with, I guess, our HR department, sir. And I think that they have submitted it, and I believe they said the personnel cabinet, but I do not know that for sure.
Well, we're trying to help you here. We truly are. At the same time, trying to save the taxpayers some dollars here, and there's tremendous potential here. And I'm sure you're not the only agency that has to rely on these sort of things. And gentlemen, we've got a budget session coming up, 2024. Maybe there's something that we're going to have to tackle, because we're not spending dollars wisely here. But I guess in the interim, you folks have no other alternative. The other point I'd make is, when we're hiring the agency nurses like this, in all likelihood, we're, for want of a better term, stealing them from other healthcare providers within the Commonwealth, and that's not a good environment for us to exist in either, to be in competition with the public. But with that, Mr. Chair, I hope I made my point. I'll make a motion to approve this contract.
Okay, Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I ask two questions?
Yes, you may.
Okay. This is Senator Don Douglas. I have two questions for you. Number one, you mentioned that the agency nurses are costing about $72,000.
No, sir, I'm sorry. The ones from the RFP are costing about $175,000 for the more expensive agency.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. What's the turnover?
It depends, to be honest. When the 2 years is up, when the RFP is up, technically, if there's a non-compete, I may lose all of those nurses. Currently, one of the agency has a 3-month rotation. They're allowed to sign back on with us. And to be honest with you, most of them do. Most of the agencies have been good about getting these nurses back on with us when the RFP changes. But technically, they're on a 3-month rotation. And if they wanted to leave that position, they could with the agency as they run it.
Thank you. We've got to do something different. This is ridiculous. We've got to do something different. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any full-time nurses that aren't agency nurses?
Yes, sir. I can pull up that number. Our supervisor positions, the nurse supervisors, are all DJJ nurses. So looking at the list, it looks like I have about 11 of my nurses that are full-time DJJ nurses. I have about 60 positions total. Roughly 42 or 43 of them are full. So it looks like 11 out of the 42 are full-time DJJ nurses.
So those agencies are filling the 42 slots.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion by Senator Meredith to have a second. Second by Representative Pollock. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye, but this hurts.
Senator Yates. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
As a former hospital CEO, it really hurts, but aye.
Chairman Hart.
I vote aye as well. Motion passes. Gentlemen, thank you for your patience and waiting on us tonight. Guys, unless there's
Thank you.
anything else on the agenda that has any comment.
I'd like to make just one comment.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'm not sure, and I've talked to Senator Meredith about this. I'm not sure why we have a government contract review, because we have absolutely, it appears to me, no power to change the things that we're concerned about on this committee. So,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because tomorrow in a Senate State Government Committee, I'm presenting a bill that would put a little teeth in it.
Thank you, sir.
House Bill 329. So, but with that said, guys, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April the 11th, 2023 at 9 a.m. So thank you, guys.